Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again, and the next build that I decided to take upon myself was one of my strongest ones from a couple of leagues back. I think it was Blight League potentially, and it was the Cast on Crit Detonate Dead Necromancer, but this time around I'm playing it as an assassin. For last league I did recommend this character as a thing you can still build, and it could be an assassin or a necro, and you can probably do it in a few other things as well, but to me it just seemed like assassin was gonna benefit a lot more from the playstyle of the character because you get a lot of movement speed, a lot of crit from assassin, and ultimately the way I wanted to scale this cast on crit detonate dead character for a necromancer was to focus on the corpse life and then the corpse explosion damage, since detonate dead has two parts to it. It has an initial large explosion and then a corpse life based explosion, and it just didn't seem that worth to scale the corpse life in the end to add to the overall detonate dead damage. So instead we're pretty much just scaling the front loaded hit that's a spell, since the Detonate Dead is split into two different portions, a spell and a non-spell. We're just scaling off of the spell, so spell crit, bunch of spell damage, that sort of stuff, and then good wholesome explosions. So the interaction here is Cyclone attached to cast on crit, detonate dead, and desecrate. So you're already using 4 links purely for the setup. So every single time you crit with your Cyclone, you're going to be shitting out desecrates and detonate deads alternating, and then you just get a few extra supports for damage, although in this case we still need spell cascade and as another mandatory support, just so that you can throw down much more desecrates than you otherwise would, and then detonate deads are going off a lot better that way too. So you then have a couple of links left over, since we're still using the exquisite blade that has a built-in cast on crit into it, and in this case, I think I use Inspiration and Increased Area, subbing in for Conk Effect. In the end though, this character, as an assassin, is an extremely smooth playstyle. The elusive buff that the assassin gets gives you quite a lot of movement speed, some good dodge, and then at crit is extremely reliable in this sort of a setup. We've damn near got 100% crit quite effortlessly thanks to the power charges, and then pretty much 100% spell crit as well. So it's all pretty smooth, and it's just about scaling the defense of the character up to how much you think you need. So far I've gotten about 5,500 life, and then I've got 1,500 energy shield, just kind of protecting myself from the big hits. And the previous character had 7,000 as a Necromancer using a Comb's Heart. This time around I've gone with a Frenzy on hit chest because I'm trying to use Badge of the Brotherhood for the first time ever. Badge of the Brotherhood is a neck that will give you your Frenzy charges up to the same max as your power charges. So since I can get 7 power charges, I can then get 7 Frenzy charges, and that's why I'm also using a chest that's fairly suboptimal, but it's good enough for my own purposes at the moment, to help me with the frenzy charge generation and a little bit of defense. So you can build it fairly differently. You don't have to stack the frenzies, for example. You can just be a lot thicker, but so far the amount of life and stuff that I've got seems to be good enough to clear all the content out there and do it rather smoothly. It's definitely the smoothest mapper I've had this league, I do believe, and that's just because of Cyclone. You spin around continuously, you're always avoiding delirium shit because you're always on the move, and it's just kind of unfortunate that Cyclone takes up this role for so many different leagues, because it's just far and away one of the smoothest and best skills for offense and defense. So we just pretty much shred through most maps and most delirium content, and it's been quite a smooth experience compared to plenty of other characters like our Doriani Fister, for example, who has to stand very still to get his damage in. That's just where we're at, and yeah, get some Cyclone into you if you haven't. It's definitely worth doing. Cast on crit, impale, full Ellie, doesn't really matter. Whatever you do, it should be pretty good. We did do 1 simulacrum so far. The character's currently level 91 or 92, I think. Tried 1 simulacrum. Most of it is completely fine. Once again, real need to ever stand still, so you can dodge most damage. CoC on wave 20 proved to be a bit of a problem because I ran into a few of his attacks and still didn't quite dodge things too well. That voices there is a 7 passive voices, which is worth 4 exalts, so still pretty lucky. But once I got CoC figured out, or at least once I could position myself next to him, because this is just the layout that is the worst for CoC. He puts bubbles in certain places and you just can't really fight him like you'd want to. Once you're kind of on top of him, you can spin to win and it's no problem at all. And then some single target being showcased here as well on a couple of the Conquerors. And I do want to go over the character, how I've built, and a few things I've done differently, because it's taken me a fair bit of testing and effort to get to exactly where I'm at, and I do want to show you what else I went through. So the character we have here is currently level 92, called CoC Detonator, Cast on Crit, Assassin, Detonate, Dead stuff. And like I said, based around the Cast on Crit sword once again. Basically all you're looking for on an exquisite shaped blade is Cast on Crit, and then something else. It doesn't have to be attack speed, doesn't have to be double damage. I had an attack speed sword before this one that was just 27 attack speed. It got vialed and didn't survive, so I made another one. It's now got attack speed and double damage. If you're looking for pretty much anything else, you can get some +1 sockets, you can get elemental penetration, you can use some crit I suppose, but our character doesn't really need it. So we're basically just regaling all kinds of things until we get some cast on crit comboed with just about anything, and then you can multi-mod it. For the 2 important mods that I like to think so anyway, is spell damage, non-chaos is extra chaos, and then double damage while focused. Since pretty much every single time you're going to be attacking a boss, you will have your focus and use most of its full duration for the 4 seconds of attacking, it's pretty much just a 30% damage increase, double damage for the duration of a little boss fight. So for a suffix, can't really get much better than 30% double damage. So you can see, as I mentioned, we then have Cyclone attached to Desecrate, Detonate Dead, so that's our staple as a 4-link with Cast on Crit. Next thing is definitely then Spell Cascade, and then I'm running Inspiration and Concentrated Effect for bossing, but increased area for attack, or you can use Energy Leech for clear instead. And we currently only have 1 mana cost on Cyclone, thanks to the -2 mana cost here, and it's pretty much free, as you can see, and we keep up inspiration charges just about all the time quite easily. And the current effect that you see here is like these green wings and then the Celestial Cyclone and my entire green setup, which is based off of Dragon Hunter Longsword, Project Weapon Effect, and Jovial Ringmaster Wings, which is the regular wings but combined. And then some of the other Project effect, DNA, like Project Character, Project Aura, it's all the new mystery box shit, and that's why we're so green and spinning like a nice little Christmas tree. So, as I also mentioned, I'm currently using this for the first time ever. It was down to like 1 exalt, so I thought it was a good time to use it for the first time in my life, since it was kind of a bit too popular the past couple of leagues. So max frenzy charges equal to your max power charges. I have 7 power charges, so I can now have 7 frenzy charges. Typically, if you're just playing a character that gets 3 frenzy charges, you use Blood Rage, and it's nice to have some frenzies for some clear. So it's not a big deal if you don't get boss frenzies, since you've only got 3 of them, whatever. But since we've got 7, you kind of want your frenzies up for the boss as well, since that's going to be 28% more damage and attack speed. So we've got a frenzy on hit chest. I just alt-regaled till something happened. I chaos spammed a lot, and it wasn't a very good way of getting frenzy charge on hit. With some alt-regaling, it took me like 100 alts, and then I got some crappy basic chest, and then just chucked a couple of life rolls on there. That's all I really care about, a life roll, maybe a bit of energy shield to help prevent some extra damage taken on the incoming, but energy shield doesn't do all that much in our build anyway. It's just kind of something I did because I may as well. I've then grabbed a Vermilion ring that's shaped, put in life and mana catalysts, and then just tried to get Assassin Mark on hit. Not a big deal to have Assassin Mark on hit, because if you don't, you can easily just have it attached to Stormbrand, which in this case is currently doing Combustion, and then Culling Strike and Blind. And don't know how relevant all that stuff is, but you can instead have a curse on hit. So I was very ready to not have Assassin Mark on hit, but since we got it, whatever. And then just a crappy ring that's got a bit of dexterity, gloves that have some life and crit chance against shocked enemies, which kind of overkill at this point, but whatever. Reduced flask charges belt, and then a helm that's got the Detonate Dead enchant, and just a bit of energy shield as well as life and resists. That's the entire setup. And then the flasks, of course, but our passive tree at the moment is kind of based around the cluster jewels. So we've got one here and one there. However, for 91 levels, I didn't have this cluster jewel, and I was using just this area over here, which is a lot easier to build through since you don't have to worry about this cluster, and I was going through here. So if you don't want to have to worry about this second cluster, which you don't necessarily need to, because I ended up with the same amount of life and maybe a bit more damage and utility, but ended up doing this because it seemed like it was going to give me more damage while losing no life if you can get the right cluster stuff. But originally our build just went through here, through these life nodes, grabbed this area, went through here, grabbed some area here and some life nodes, and also these area nodes here. I have now cut that, and if you want to copy the exact same, then you can do it just like this, but it's easier to level just through here and only really take one initial cluster, because the first cluster is the more important one. We've got some exposure from corrosive elements, burning bright, just kind of whatever, just something to do. Doriani's lesson, which is a little bit of leech. Then grabbed precise focus, which is crit and crit multi while channeling. Hexbreaker, meaning we're immune to curses while channeling, which is pretty much always, so it saves us a curse slot on our flasks. We then have Cooked Alive, which gives you a bit of extra fire negative res to enemies, and then Cremator, which ignites enemies. Ignited enemies are destroyed on kill. So that's pretty nice for getting rid of all corpses, and it makes us porcupine proof, and it makes the build a lot more satisfying in the way it's clearing and exploding shit. And then we grab just some life-ons as always. Battle is the name of the game. So when I finally wanted to get around to the other cluster jewel, just grabbed whatever I could here. Prismatic Heart, because it gives a bit of resist, and then Smoking Remains, which is just some fire damage. But our second cluster jewel is pretty much worthless. It's just there for a couple extra sockets. And in this case, I went for area, so 21% there, bit of area damage as well, and 15% area there. And I did this one because I unspec'd this area, unspec'd this area, and this area, so I had to kind of make it up somehow. And then precise focus once again, and a bit of endurance charge while channeling. This thing is not very reliable. It'll most of the time give you a charge or two, sometimes you'll maintain 3, but I figured it may as well get a bit of defense. Since it's kind of free, I'm not really too sold on doing anything else with another medium cluster. And then once again, got a Feast of Flesh over here, and a Fatal down here. The only other real important thing is what we're doing with a Thread of Hope. This is the type of item you get off of Awakener, and it means you can slot passives within this double circle. So it's not everything in this circle, it's just anything in between this large circle. And this is probably one of the best uses of it you'll ever see. You can grab Heart of Flame for our build, you can grab another 35 crit multi, fucking 56 crit strike per power charge there, or for all your power charges, 25 fire and 15 fire res, and then also 30 crit multi, and this little 10 fire, 10 crit multi. So all of that is pretty damn good for one Thread of Hope, and I think it's rather worth using in this one. And then just got a Watcher's Eye with some fire penetration, though you could easily do a Zealotry one and do some penetration there as well, or crit multi, since we do get a decent amount of penetration, or you can kind of build around Awakened Fire Pen instead of getting a lot of different Fire Pen. There's a lot of different routes you can go here. This is just the way I've decided to build this character, and you can make him a lot thicker if you want. You can not base yourself around Frenzies and the entire Badge of the Brotherhood thing, do a Combs chest, because I had to basically find what to do with my last few sockets here. I was pretty inefficient in my use of sockets, or efficient rather. efficient in my use of sockets because I didn't have anything in my chest for 90 levels or so. So I chucked a Steel Skin, Wave of Conviction, cast when damage taken up here. Just helps me, I don't know, survive a little bit. An Ice Golem, which dies all the time anyway, straight up useless. And a Vile Righteous Fire that gives us big damage. Otherwise, we've got a Second Wind attached to Flame Dash, Arcane Surge, and Brand Recoil. So every single time we Flame Dash, we do get Arcane Surge, but then at the start of a map, typically you get your Stormbrand up and then run around, and every single time you use your Brand Recoil, you get Arcane Surge and your defensive little setup around you as well. And then down here we've got Anger, Summon Skitterbots, Precision, and Enlighten. Skitterbots just give us a bit of reliable shock and chill to the enemies, and the shock in this case does 15% increased damage taken, so it's not too bad, but you can use Herald of Ash instead. You can do a few other things too if you want to reserve your mana in a different way. I'd say that's all I got to say about the character for now. There is another version of it, the Necromancer one, that I posted like 5 or so months ago. This is just a different one, an Assassin, because it's based around a lot more crit, a lot more movement speed. You can make it slightly thicker, you can do different ascendancies, but basically what you're looking for is just Cyclone into Desecrate, Detonate Dead, and Cast on Crit, and it feels really quite nice to play. You can also do Volatile Dead if you want. Lots of people do that. Maybe with Cast on Crit or Poet's Pens or Spell Slingers, but this is the build I've chosen for this character. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.